Welcome to Dropping In, a podcast of storytelling and interviews with your host, Winter Olympian Mercedes Nicoll.
Thank you so much for dropping in today. This is series 10, if you can believe it. This is take 2, the second series of Whistler Kids. Now, Whistler gets a lot of visitors, but for those that don't know, we have almost 12,000 people that actually live here. I know some of the tourists don't understand that, but we do. We have 2 elementary schools, 1 private school, and 1 high school in this pretty sweet community that we call Whistler. Now, Whistler does produce a lot of Olympic athletes, me being one of them, and I'm excited to share this second series of Whistler Kids with you. I'll be chatting with a diverse group of Whistler kids who grew up in our small Canadian mountain town, from writers to Olympians, business leaders, and all-around talented people who've come out of this Whistler town. Today is May 8th, 2023. Thank you again for dropping in today. This is episode 80. Now, let me introduce the guests that we will be dropping in with today. This guest has a deep connection with Whistler. He learned to ski at Rainbow Ski Village, his family's business. He was a natural in competitive sport, receiving a ski racing scholarship in Montana. This is where he discovered a passion for business while spending his summers back in Whistler working for Whistler Excavations. He eventually returned to Whistler, where he began his career in real estate, honing his expertise in acquisitions and development, before stepping into his current role as president at Wesgroup Properties, a leading real estate development and asset management firm based in Vancouver. Whistler remains his home. He divides his time between Whistler and the mountain town and is committed to giving back to his community. Seriously, he really is. He's an active volunteer as board director for the Whistler Development Corporation and has served in various capacities on housing and real estate committees and task force. Most recently, he has founded the Old School Initiative, a non-for-profit focused on supporting snow and concrete-related sports participating athletes from Whistler and Pemberton. This son, father, brother, skier, president of Wesgroup, volunteer, and non-for-profit founder is someone I was lucky enough to grow up with. Let's drop in with Beau Jarvis. Hello, Beau. How are you?
Hi.
Is it kind of weird to hear all those Escalades like together?
Yeah, it's like a I don't know. It's a terrible bio, to be honest.
No, you've done so much.
Anyway,
You've done a lot. You've done a lot. So we're all proud of you. Are you ready to get into the 10 question rapid fires that are never rapid, so everyone gets to know you a little bit more?
sure am.
Okay. Number 1, where in the world are you today?
I am in West Vancouver this morning.
Awesome. This is one of my most favorite questions for Whistler Kids. And I feel like I might know the answer, but I'm not sure. Now, are you a Whistler or Blackcomb person?
Oh, geez, that is a good question. Probably Whistler. Yeah.
And why Whistler?
Um, I don't know. I mean, I skied probably the amount I've skied both mountains is close to equal in my life, but Whistler, I don't know, like the big old softy, right?
I know. Well, I was saying that like my parents actually don't go on Blackcomb still.
Or is that right?
Like very like not like it's weird to see my family on Blackcomb. So
Yeah.
it's
I
always a
remember
good
your
question.
mom working the ski patrol hunt in Whistler.
Yeah, exactly. Totally, totally. They are Whistler through and through. It's interesting to hear people's perspectives.
Yeah.
Okay, number 3. What was your Whistler hangout area when you're a kid, and what is it now?
Oh, geez. Well, so when I was a kid in Whistler, there wasn't much, right? We've seen
Yeah.
this crazy, it happened so quick. So when I was really young, there was no hangout. You were building stuff in the forest, building jumps with your BMX. Then the Whistler Wonderland happened. I don't know if you
Oh,
remember that at all.
the arcade
Yeah,
in
yeah,
the
yeah.
in the yeah, that's
Yeah,
like
where the
Tourism
Rainbow
Whistler
Theater
offices.
was.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that was like the hangout.
Yeah.
And then my hangout now is I probably well, I mean, I hang out at Joey Gibbons' house, really.
There you
That's
go.
That's where we hang out. Or we use, we go up to Anderson Lake and Braylor and Goldbridge a lot and stuff like that. So Whistler's like almost a staging ground now,
Yeah,
a
amazing.
hub.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, number 4. Are you a morning person or a night owl?
Ooh, probably morning person.
Morning person? Like
Yeah.
how early are we talking?
Not too early. I mean, we have 5 kids and we got to get them up at like, 6:30, 6:45 in the morning to get them out on the school bus.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah,
Awesome.
that's probably a bit early.
Okay. Oh,
Yeah.
so this is a good segue into number 5. How do you start your day having 5 children? Which I always thought
Chaos.
was like mind blowing. I was like, oh my gosh,
Chaos.
Beau has 5 kids.
Yeah. It's chaos.
How old are your kids?
So we have quite the spectrum. Last year we had a kid going to kindergarten and a kid going to university in the same year. So all from the same wife, right? Because when someone hears that spectrum, they're like, "Oh, it
Yeah.
must be a joining family or whatever."
Yeah.
No, so 19, 15, 13, almost 9 and 6.
Wow.
Yeah.
Kudos.
Yeah.
Your wife is
Good times.
an amazing human.
Yes, indeed.
All right, number 6. Would you rather choose a book or watch Netflix?
Ooh, geez. Probably 50-50 on that. I'd probably lean towards a book.
Yeah. Like, are you like a nighttime book reader? Because I find that helps me get to sleep.
Yeah, I'm a nighttime book reader for
Yeah.
sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything that you've like binged on TV shows or anything lately?
I've been binging on Succession.
Oh yeah, that one's kind of dark. I
Yeah,
started watching
it's
that
a good
too.
one. White Lotus is something
Yeah.
that is kind of mind blowing. It's such an uncomfortable television show to watch,
Right.
which I think is the point.
Yeah.
And those are probably my last binges.
Nice. Okay. I just like to get to like I don't know. It's nice to know what other people are watching.
Yeah.
Number 7. Name one thing, and I know I've learned a lot of things. Name one thing you've learned the hard way.
Like my whole life, I've learned the hard way. I feel like one thing I've learned the hard way is probably. Oh, geez, that's a really tough question. I
It is
swear,
a tough
I
question.
honestly learn everything the hard way.
That's fair. That's a
I
fair
have
answer.
I've never really had any easy lessons. My entire life is learning the hard way,
Yeah. And over again.
and
Like
over and over and over again.
it makes me think of when I was concussed. I was like, yeah, I'm way better. And then I'd like set myself back and be like,
Yeah,
okay, done that like 10 times. Like
yeah,
figure it out.
yeah, yeah.
Awesome. Everything. That is life. I think that's
Everything,
the way life
everything. How to
goes.
be a dad, how to be a husband, how to
Yeah,
be an athlete, how to be a person in business. It's all been hard. Every
totally.
single fucking thing of it.
Nice. Number 8, talking about being an athlete, what would be your favorite sport?
Skiing and skateboarding. That's an
You
easy
skateboard?
answer.
Why didn't I
Pardon?
know I didn't know you skateboarded.
Yeah, I just stopped, I guess, maybe a couple of years ago now.
Okay.
Well, in Whistler, that was all we had, right? So because there wasn't enough kids for sports teams back then. So
Mhm.
that's the thing, right? Like Whistler today and what's in our minds was just so different. And you would remember part of that as well. But
Yeah.
so you skied in the winter. That's all there was. That was the only curriculum-based sport,
Right.
was skiing. And then in the summer, you could play tennis or skateboard. And I wasn't playing tennis. And so, yeah. So that's actually that's the last board I skated on right there.
Oh,
And
right
I hung it
behind
up
you.
a couple
That's
of years ago.
awesome.
Yeah.
Nice.
So I would still hit the bowl on weekends and stuff like that. And but when I think one of what the concrete gets harder when you get older when you're skateboarding. And
No
so
doubt.
I had a pretty good wipeout at the bottom of the bowl, and there was a couple kids that came up to me and they said, "Sir, are you all right?"
Oh no.
So, and
No.
yeah, and then I was like, okay. But it's crazy, like some of the skateboarders that were sort of my heroes, like the Bones Brigade, Steve Caballero, Tony Hawk, and stuff like that. I was watching footage or content on Instagram from Steve Caballero, who is 58 years old
Right.
almost 60 years old and completely airing on a vert ramp still, like just,
Mind
and
blowing.
which is so awesome.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Mad
I'm not.
respect.
I'm not.
You hung it up behind
Yeah.
you.
I still ski absolutely as much as I can.
For sure. I know we saw each other in the chairlift this year. It
Yes.
was awesome. I love
Yes.
that. That's what I love about our community.
Yeah.
Okay, we're almost done. Number 9, lake or mountain?
Oh, both.
Both. Yeah, that's a good
Whistler.
answer. Yeah. We have them all.
Yeah. Well, I'm not both. They're very important.
They are. Awesome. Okay, number 10, the last question, which I don't even know what I would choose, but what's one core memory from your childhood in Whistler?
Ooh.
They're not easy questions,
I have so
but
many. I mean, I think one of I'm pretty nostalgic about Whistler, so I have like lots of Whistler nostalgia at my house in Whistler. I just got an old gondola delivered, like one of the
oh,
original
nice.
gondolas. I'd been searching one for like 16 years and
The
finally got my
Creekside
hands on one.
the
What's that?
Creekside one? The
Yeah,
Creekside
yeah, yeah. The
silver
old
ones?
silver one,
Yes.
yeah. And so I haven't got it open yet. I'm trying to see if my initials are in there.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
but my favorite memories were summer. And it was such a quiet place back then. And we just, there's no like cell phones or anything. And I'd get up in the morning. I was describing this to someone just the other day, and you get on the phone and you have all of your friends' phone numbers memorized.
Yeah,
And you just dial them all, and it's like, okay, meeting at Lost Lake or West Side Road, Wayside Park, whatever. You get on your BMX, you got your backpack and your towel, and you're basically gone, and you just got to be home for dinner. And we used to go into the village, which was much smaller. They didn't have a lot, it was just half the size, but we would go into the garbage bins and get
yeah,
bottles and cans. It's because we didn't have any money. And you'd take them to the grocery store to get freezies, and then you get on your BMX and back to Lost Lake or whatever. And yeah, those are my favorite memories. Not with like, obviously there's so many with skiing and skateboarding, all this kind of stuff. But summer in the Whistler, when I in sort of grade 5, 6, and 7, when you're just this freedom, and
yeah.
it was incredible.
So awesome. I love that. Well, that's the rapid fire. People got to know you a little bit better.
All right.
And I do want to dive deep into like what Whistler is now compared to what it was then. And you did touch on that in the questions, in the sense that like there was like really not much here. Like I remember the elementary school was a portable, like right by the Gateway Lights now. So like I can you give like a kind of description of like the growth and what happened and how it occurred?
Yeah, I mean, and obviously there was Whistler even before our family moved there. So our family moved there in like 73 or 74.
Okay.
The Keg restaurant was down on Alta Lake.
Yeah.
That's why we moved there. My dad went to Whistler to run the Keg.
Okay.
And there was like 4 restaurants. There was the Keg, there was La Pre, which turned into Dusty's.
Yeah.
So there was an old restaurant at the Creekside Gondola that was called La Pre. There was Rudy's Steakhouse and Nestor's. Um, and
Awesome. I
then
love it.
Beau's restaurant at Rainbow Ski Village, which was our family's place. And so yeah, it was super small, right? Like, so there was, I don't know, 500-600 full-time residents.
Mhm.
And in the summers, as I said, and in the fall, like early fall, it was just like there was nobody. Like there was just logging trucks, right, ripping down the road. Some of the highway was oiled down dirt. All of the subdivisions, the roads were oiled down dirt. Like they
Yeah.
weren't paved.
Right.
And so it was like vastly different from
Oh
what it
my
is today.
gosh.
I went to
Amazing.
Myrtle Phillip, what you just described. There was a school there, so that's under like High Steakhouse right now.
Yeah.
And that was the original Myrtle Phillip. And like I knew Myrtle Phillip.
No way.
um,
Mad respect.
there's a picture that's on at the museum or whatever with like all the kids around Myrtle Phillip. I'm like just above her.
Oh my gosh.
And then yeah, we went to high school in Pemberton because there's no high school in Whistler.
Yeah, so
We
you guys
bussed
would
up
have to
there
bus up there. Yeah, that's
every
something
day.
else.
Yeah, our family actually moved up there for like grade 10, 11, and 12, we had a small acreage up there, and then we moved back to Whistler after.
Okay.
But yeah, it's like, and so Whistler then versus today it's just like night and day. The crazy thing is it happened really fast, right? You think
Mhm.
about the growth of a small town. This growth was rapid, right? From
Yeah.
an urban planning perspective, from a population perspective, from a demand on infrastructure perspective, it was rapid. So it's hard to even, you got to hold on to the memories of back then because it's hard to remember. It moves so quickly. It's hard
For
to
sure.
remember what it was like.
And
But
for your, like, point of view from your business perspective now and looking back and reflecting, are you, like, mind blown how quickly it went?
totally mind blown. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
And it's like, I feel like it's been, like, never ending
Yeah,
since we moved here in '95 full
yeah,
time, but obviously our parents are friends and knew
yeah,
each other way back when.
yeah.
So it's crazy. I do wanna talk about the Rainbow Ski Village.
Sure.
Can you explain that to our listeners and viewers?
Yeah. Well, the what is now the Rainbow subdivision with the gas station and my favorite coffee shops there. Um,
Yes.
but yeah, that was a little ski hill. It had three rope tows. It had a ski jump, a Nordic jump. So like the Canadian Nordic jumping team would practice there.
Yes.
When we operated, the jump was like starting to become dilapidated, and we'd like hike up on there, and my mom would be screaming at us, "Get off of there!" And there was some night skiing, and there was a restaurant called Beau's Restaurant and a bar, ski shop. My mom helped to open one of the first real estate offices in the back of Rainbow.
Amazing.
And yeah, it was just this little ski hill. And
So
it was funny. It was kind of two runs and two rope tows and then a little bunny rope, like a smaller rope tow. And in the middle, there's this like tree island. And there was like this luge track that formed in the middle of the tree island with a jump that just flew you out onto one of the runs. And that was what we kind of did all day. And you know, fly out into people skiing down and they'd get all upset. And there was a little tower above the restaurant that you'd climb up in a ladder, and there was a microphone there, and you could stop all the lifts from there
oh my
and
gosh.
allow. And my mom would get on the microphone, and she'd be screaming at us, "Get on! Stop jumping in the middle of the run! Stop that!" Like, yeah.
Oh, that's
Anyway,
awesome.
so it
That
was fun, yeah. And like you always hear people, lots of people learn to ski there. I
no,
still
I'm
meet
wondering if
people
I
today.
went there. Or
What's that?
maybe I'm wondering if I went there, if my parents would have taken me there.
Yeah, I'm sure for sure your parents would have eaten at the restaurant. For
Yeah.
sure they
Oh,
did. And
that's
there was, like I
awesome.
said, night skiing there. And yeah, I mean, so, and then they shut it down. There was a few really bad snow years in the valley, and it became quite economical to operate. And so they shut it down. And the Canadian military actually came and grabbed all the rope tows and gear and took it to like Alberta, where they had a little ski hill that they were trying to get going.
No way.
Yeah.
Wow. I love that history. That's super
Yeah.
cool. And then I wanna get into, like, you probably then went to Whistler Mountain, and how did you get into ski racing? Because you got this, you went to Montana on a scholarship.
Mhm. I mean, again, it was the only curriculum-based sport in Whistler. It's all you
Right.
could only do that.
Yeah.
And there was a few people that,
But you were really good at
well, I mean, good at the time. I mean, you know, there's lots
it.
of my friends, our friends that
Yeah.
made it, you know, that took it further than I did, and you know, obviously like Davey getting in the Olympics and people
Love
like
that.
yourselves. I didn't go that far, but yeah, it was the only thing you could do. I didn't. I again, you talked about what's the hardest lesson you've learned in life, or whenever. What are your rapid fire questions? I
Yeah.
wasn't a natural at
Okay.
it. I wasn't really a natural at anything. And I was just a harder worker than everyone.
Mm.
That's my claim to fame, is really just I'll outwork you,
Yes.
and
Yes.
beat you. And so um, that's what I did, and it was awesome because back then you had a Blackcomb Ski Club and a Whistler Ski Club.
Yes.
Now it's all amalgamated.
Totally.
But so there was quite a rivalry in the valley, which was really cool. And you know, guys on the Blackcomb Club hated the guys on the Whistler Club, and blah blah blah. and and we'd be riding the bus to school to Pemberton, and some guys are in the Blackcomb Club, some on the Whistler Club, and they sat on different sides of the bus, and um,
Gosh. Love it. Love it.
um, so no, it was ski racing was awesome. I mean, I still to this day believe that to get the proper foundation, no matter what direction you want to take in skiing, whether it's big mountain, freestyle, skier cross, or whatever, the
Yeah.
best foundation is ski racing. And you see that, right? Like you see, like Stan Ray. I mean, I see this guy doing all this. I think he's been on your podcast.
Yeah. Yeah. Mr.
He's
Pitts.
I see all kinds of content about that guy, and he started ski racing,
Totally.
and did very well at it. And so
I
it's
also started skiing.
what's that?
I also
You
started
did
skiing.
too. There you
Yeah.
go.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. That's kind of
It's
ski racing
awesome.
for me. And
Oh, that's so cool. And then Montana, like when you were in Montana, would you miss being in Whistler? I know it's like still like mountain towny, but in the States a little bit different.
yeah, I did actually. It was. I mean, it was first of all, I was coming from Whistler, and I drove down by myself to Montana, and I got stuck at the border because I screwed up all the paperwork, and so I arrived instead of when I was supposed to arrive and be welcomed. I arrived not, and I was in a dorm that was co-ed, and it was the sports dorm. So male football team,
Oh,
female male ski race team, female male basketball, and female volleyball, all in this one dorm. And I arrived on a
that's a game changer being with like different sports.
Oh yeah, it was crazy, and I arrived on a Saturday night, and it was just chaos in this place. I want It's probably not even appropriate for this podcast in terms of what I saw with my own eyes. And I went to the phone booth, and I phoned my dad, and I was like, I want to come home. I
Oh
want to come
no.
home. And he's just like, just give it a day.
Yeah.
But it was great. I missed Whistler all the time though. Went home to Whistler as much as possible, including for like training camps and things like that.
Mhm.
But what was cool about down there is, the United States has some really neat ski resorts, and you've probably been to tons of
Yeah.
them, where it's like super core culture, right? Like it's,
Mhm.
I could name like Bridger Bowl in Montana, Schweitzer, Sun Valley, like there's Telluride. There's all these really cool core ski towns. And when I say core, it's like this hardcore culture and ski shops, and it's just
Yeah.
like it's a really cool vibe. And so I really enjoyed that. But I mean, there's nothing like home, right?
Totally. Totally. And it's that must have been challenging go from like you said earlier, Whistler, even when I grew up, there weren't really sports teams. So like to
Mhm.
go from like such a small community to like being with football players and stuff like that, that's kind of
It's
similar.
funny.
It's similar for me going like Whistler to like going to the Olympics and being
Yeah.
like, well, I haven't really hung out with hockey players before, but now we're great
Yeah,
friends.
totally. Totally.
So funny. Um, a fun fact for our listeners and viewers that yeah, there was no high school in Whistler, and you did touch on that earlier. And getting bussed up to Pemberton, I think that's something that's really cool. I was actually the first grade to go into the high school. That was grade 7 through 12 here. And it's like my little claim to fame at that school. But I do want to touch on what you're doing now for kids with the old school initiative. So
Mhm.
you said you snow sports and then concrete sports. And now we understand because you are a skateboarder, the concrete comes into play. What made this come about?
Um, I think that there's a bunch of people. You said it in your intro how Whistler has sort of bred lots of talented people.
Mhm.
And I'm not referring to myself as talented by any means, but I think there's a bunch of people that have gone on to have a moderate level of success,
Yeah.
um, that still have a major connection to the valley.
Mhm.
And I could, the founders of one of the founders of Land Yachts, which is a huge
Yeah.
skateboard kind of company, longboard company. He grew up with us in Whistler. I could name a whole bunch of people like that. And so they have this connection with the valley, and they're interested in giving back to the community. And so I was kind of doing it myself in a really ad hoc way where people, you know, it was the Real Wild Kittens that really started everything, to be honest, which is
Yeah.
like the coolest skateboard program on the planet for little girls. And I just brought one of my girls there that day, and it was free. And I was like, "What?
Yeah.
You girls are giving away free skateboarding lessons, and you show up every Friday, no matter what?" And they're like, "Yep." And I was like, "This is incredible!" Like, and
Yeah.
so they were at the time, Juliette Pelchat and her sister Billy and Maggie Crompton, they were like, that was 3 years ago. So I don't know, they must have been like 16,
Little ones.
15 years old, and they're
Yeah.
doing this. And how community minded, right? Like, I don't understand that. It's their parents did such a great job
Yeah.
to have these kids that are that community minded, right?
Totally.
And so I just started asking them if they needed support, because I had been thinking about starting a curriculum based skateboarding program
Okay.
and trying to figure out like a skateboard club or whatever. And that right at that same time, the Real Wild Kittens and the Whistler Skateboard Club, they
Mm-hmm.
basically started. And I
Mm-hmm.
was like, oh my God. So, and I started talking to them all, and how do you make these programs sustainable in the Valley, right? Like,
Yeah.
how because there's so many fits and starts with different programs where they start for a year or two and they fizzle off because it's hard, right? It's
Yeah.
hard to get these programs going in the Valley. And so I wanted to make sure that they were sustainable and had some longevity, and so I just continued to offer support,
Awesome.
whether it was financial, buying all their merchandise for them to go and sell and make money. We still do that to this day. Their hardware, helmets, pads, skateboards. And then I was like, okay, I should maybe call this something
Yeah.
and get it organized. And so I came up with the name, the Old School Initiative, because I described earlier, there's some people that have had kind of from the Valley that have moderate success that are kind of old schoolers now, I
Yeah.
guess, including myself. And so it's just, yeah, the Old School Initiative. And we focus primarily on concrete and snow,
Yeah.
Whistler and Pemberton, because there's lots of stuff for mountain biking and all this other stuff. And
Yeah.
we sponsor 4 athletes,
Okay.
and who are awesome. Like, our athletes are fucking killing it. Like, seriously, like
Who
one
are
of
your
them won.
athletes?
What's that?
Do you know, can you name them all?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
Juliette Pelchat,
Yeah.
member of the Canadian snowboard team,
Yeah.
Truth Smith,
Yeah.
Canadian snowboard team, as well as, like, both of those two are insane skateboarders.
Yeah.
And Broderick Thompson, he's a senior member of the men's downhill squad. He came 9th in the Hahnenkamm at Kitzbühel this year.
Yeah.
And Emmeline Bennett, skier cross, who won World Juniors this year.
Okay. Cool.
And so, like, these athletes are killing it.
Don't worry, Beau. At least 2 of those will be, and the Real Wild Kittens will be on this series, as is Truth Smith, and I'm hoping to get Broderick as well.
Oh, good.
So
Yeah.
I didn't even plan that.
There you go. I love, and yeah, so we support them financially and with what all kinds of, they're coming down this Friday, actually. They were interested in brands. So in particular, Juliette and Truth, and Juliette obviously has the Real Wild Kittens, which I just think female skateboarding is such an untapped market.
Mhm.
And she's like got this really cool brand. And so we're bringing them down to Vancouver to meet with some brand specialists.
Awesome.
And we're bringing them to Supra Distribution, which is one of the largest skateboard kind of clothing and gear distribution companies in Western Canada. And they're going to get a whole schooling on how to identify brands and all that. And so we can help that way too, right? With our
Yeah.
connections and just people who want to give back that way. And so that's really cool.
Huge. That's so huge.
It's awesome.
You're like the mentor for them.
Yeah. Well, and we also hook
Amazing.
them up with people like, so Emmeline, who's in skier cross, we got her hooked up with Ashley McIver, who I used to coach.
Yeah.
And so there's some mentorship relationships, mentor-mentee relationships happening as well. So all of that stuff, if we can do that, we can do it. We'll do
That's
it.
so awesome. Beau,
Yeah.
you're crushing it and like really
Yeah.
helping the community thrive, which is really what I think Whistler is all about. I talk about the community and how amazing we are at helping each other, and you are doing it. So it's
Yeah, it's
awesome.
fun.
Thank you so much. Where can people find out more information about the Old School Initiative?
Oldschoolinitiative.com is the website. And then at Whistler Old School on Instagram. That's where you can see everything we do.
Amazing.
And we're like, we're terrible at Instagram. We'll like do 6 posts in like 4 days, and then we won't post again for 4
That's
months. And like,
fine.
so we're just
All
not good
good.
at that stuff. We're
No.
old.
That's all good. It gives people an understanding of what it is all
Yeah.
about.
Yeah.
Bo, I want to thank you so much for dropping in today. Some of my takeaways from this is that for people that are coming to Whistler or are new to Whistler, it has transformed. It has
Yeah.
transformed into something that is very different than what you grew up in, than what I grew up in. But I mean, it's pretty awesome place to be, and the community is really what grounds everyone. And it's always great to give back to the community. So, anything that you want to add to the listeners and viewers out there?
No, thanks very much for having me. Definitely, everybody check out Old School Initiative, and the more kind of that we can grow that, the more people we can sponsor and make sure that these sports are sustainable and these programs are sustainable.
Awesome. Thank you so much for dropping in.
Thanks, Mercedes. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
Okay.
Thanks so much for dropping in today. You can find everything you want to know about Dropping In with Mercedes at droppinginwithmercedes.com. Don't forget to subscribe on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. Thanks DJ Kenosis for the music and my mom for the intro voice.